So what is next for Israel? Is it apocalypse now or doomsday's predictions collapsing? Before we begin, let's cross now live to I-24 News correspondent Pia Stackelbach at the mass rally in Tel Aviv tonight. Pia, what is happening? We're seeing many indications of some clashes between protesters and police. Wrap it up for us.
Well, Ellie, tens of thousands of people have made their way here to the interchange between Begin and Kaplan Street, the square that was renamed Democracy Square, in regards to the protests that have happened exactly here where we stand for the last more than half a year. And when you talk to protesters, you really get the feeling that some of them understood that their movement has failed because it did not stop the government to pass through one of these crucial parts of the planned judicial overhaul. But also people are here, still some are here because of conviction, because they still think that they can influence the politicians with them showing presence here, but also because people feel that there is no alternative. People that I've spoken to told me we don't have any other country, we do not have any other option. We will continue, and especially now we will continue to gather here. We will make our voices heard. We will show to the politicians that this does not mean the stop of the protest movement. And you're correct, Ellie, there have been quarrels between police and protesters. We know that several have been arrested. Protesters have split up and different groups tried to reach the Ayalon Highway not far away from here. They tried to go down to the highway in order to block it. We know that in an attempt to block the highway, at least one protester was arrested, but there is an immense amount of police presence all around here, preventing first and foremost people to go down to the Ayalon Highway. Protesters also here behind us at Kaplan Street have just lit up a fire that was extinguished by a firefighting unit. So this is going to be, and this is really the sentiment that is in the air this evening, this is going to be a massive protest. We are also hearing that people are coming here from Jerusalem. This is going to be a big protest here at Democracy Square in Tel Aviv, basically the birthplace of their protest movement against the planned judicial overhaul.
Yeah, it seems to be a long night ahead of us. I-24 News correspondent Pia Stackelbach, thank you very much for this. Gentlemen, to that point exactly, as always, we begin with a quick fire round, 30 seconds each to out your initial stance, and we pick up the conversation from there. Have the protests failed? Douglas Altabef, please take the lead. Your 30 seconds are answer.
It's a deceptively simple question because it really begs the question of what the goal of the protests were. So if you believe that the goal of the protests were to stop judicial reform, on one level they have failed because of the vote taken today. On another level, one might argue that they have succeeded because the public's desire to continue to promote judicial reform may have been affected, may have been impacted by a desire to put this away. One other thing, though, if you're Ehud Barak, you have failed because your goal was to bring down the government, and you did not.
Okay, Uri Zaki, your take.
The protest is the only ray of hope right now for the state of Israel, for the state of Israel's future. The protest is the only thing that stands between Israel and dictatorship and the end of the long and flourishing Israeli democracy that started way before when Zionism started and went throughout wars and hardships, and now by its own elected government, like many cases in history, it's trying to bring it down. The protest, the people, is the only force that would stop it.
Last but not least, Jeremy Saltan, your take?
I think that any time that you have citizens going out and voicing their opinion, that is a success. The fact that you're able to go ahead and do that is something that you shouldn't, take for granted, especially when you're here in the Middle East. I think, of course, what is important is looking at what are things going to look like moving forward. And I think that's why we still see protesters out tonight.
Okay, so from that point exactly, gentlemen, let's please feel free to interact, to engage in a conversation. Looking ahead, would the Supreme Court strike down the reasonableness bill? Uri Zaki.
Listen, as I mentioned before, we are witnessing something that other former democracies faced, and that is when an elected government brings down the restraints that liberal democracy has and decide to take all power to its hands. That's what we're witnessing right now in Israel. Now, a defensive democracy has to fight back. So we see it with the volunteers of the pilots, the reservists who do that, and the Supreme Court should be a part of it. What we saw today, although the Israeli Knesset has unprecedented power, constitutional power, like any other parliament in the world, it can't abuse this power. And what this government is doing is abusing this power in order to maintain power only to itself. That's anti-democratic, that's anti-constitutional, and I think the Supreme Court should intervene, because if not, we'll be like Putin, like Erdogan's Turkey, like Hungary's Orban, all these people that Netanyahu admires. We should not be like that.
Mr. Altabef, what do you think? Should the court intervene?
Well, you've just heard a remarkable expression of total projection. So the idea that 15 unelected, self-selecting oligarchs are the bastion of democracy, having arrogated to themselves unspeakable power, unknown in any other Western democracy.
Really? Did the Supreme Court of the United States, does it have the power from the Constitution, or did it take it upon itself?
The Merit's Party, who didn't
That's
even
exactly
cross the threshold.
the same.
I didn't interrupt you. You don't interrupt me, okay?
We encourage conversation respectfully.
I want our viewers to know the truth. No lies.
There's tremendous projection here, and the idea that the legislature, these are the people elected by us. These are our representatives. They are not.
So is Putin. So is Erdogan. In his country, right?
Putin wasn't.
He has a majority, just one.
Look, it was obviously a fair and free election because your party did not cross the threshold. So the common sense of the
Erdogan's elections were very free too. But it doesn't mean democracy is not about the rule of the majority. It's about the rights of the minorities as well. And that's what the Supreme Court is defending. And that's what your organization is trying for years to wreck. And you're beginning to...
Because that's what you guys do a great job of. You do a great job of trying to shut everyone else up. You're commendable to that, and I applaud your tactics.
I'm exercising my last period of free speech.
We promise everyone and anyone will be heard.
Uzi, it's all terrible. It's all terrible from your point of view. And what it does for you is rationalizes doing anything, blocking hospitals, blocking the airport, closing down roads, not allowing your fellow citizens.
It's not surprising that you share Im Tirtzu with this machine of poison and lies and deceit. Nobody blocked the hospital. In fact, the doctors are the ones who are going to strike because of the dangers to the health system, to the healthcare system in Israel.
That's what you're talking about.
Lies.
Jeremy Saltan, I think that's a perfect point for you to chime in as well. Again, let's try to look ahead. Would the coalition, should the coalition halt the rest of the legislation?
Look, I think what you need to have here is you do need to have both parties sit down and go back to the negotiating table. I was a very big fan of the talks that happened in the president's residence under the auspices of President Herzog. And I think that that's what both sides should go ahead and do. What we have here is a situation where the coalition is taking selfies as if it's some sort of festivity is not the best look for them. And then on the other side, the opposition going ahead and saying that the reasonability is the end of democracy. Lapid, the opposition leader, calling this the destruction of the Third Temple. I mean, these things are, of course, great exaggerations. They are not connected to actual reality. And what I think most Israelis do want to see is, and I would say that even though we do see a big protest movement, of course, a big counter-protest movement, a majority of Israelis are not in the streets. And they want to see both sides sit down and talk and resolve things, because most Israelis here are in the middle. They do want to see some sort of change. Yeah. And I think, unfortunately, the opposition did not do their job in terms of finding a way to have some sort of situation where it would not be an all or nothing game. And it's, we are where we are right now.
Jeremy, you make a very good point. Jeremy, you make a very good point, and that is that we on the right want to maintain the social fabric. we cherish the social fabric. We are not willing to burn the house down to get what we want.
You're burning
That,
the house down right now as we speak.
Of the left, who will see whatever we do is burning the house down, and that will justify an actual burning of the house down, because this is great Orwellian projection. That is the specialty here. Ehud Barak made no qualms that his goal was to bring the government down, to have insurrection, to bring the government down. If he were a right-wing guy, he'd be in jail now, but he's not. He's not because he has
wanting to bring the government down is a criminal offense in your mind.
It's an unspeakable offense against the social fabric of this country. What we need to do now, as Jeremy said,
Ellie, can someone else talk and not only right-wingers in this show?
But please, Uri Zaki, the floor
Thank you
is
so
yours.
much. Because, we're accused for being lefties. Who are these lefties? All last heads of Mossad, all last heads of the Shin Bet, most of the last chiefs of staff of the IDF. Only one hasn't spoken yet. We don't know where he stands. Pilots, high-tech people, all what's good in Israel. And all these people, economists, doctors, all these people, they are lefties, they're anarchies, they're blah, 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 blah. Listen, we are on the verge of losing the Zionist project. It's like many other countries, it comes from within. It's not about compromise or anything. I was all for the talks that went on in the auspices of the president. By the way, some of my friends criticized my position, but I thought, you should give it a try. When so many things are in stake, you have to give it a try. But now, you do not negotiate with terror. You do not negotiate it with terror. And this government is a terrorist government. It terrorizes its own people. It lost its majority in only few months after it was elected. There's no majority in the people. If they are so confident that this is what the people want, be my guest. Bring it on to a referendum, to a democratic referendum, like Britain did with the Brexit and so on and so forth. You're sure you have the majority? Bring it to a referendum. It's too important to be determined by this coincidental majority that stands for no majority in the public anymore. It lost its majority after only several months because of this judicial overhaul, because of this this attempt to break down the Israeli democracy. It is breaking down the Israeli democracy, and they only started, we know, because of Minister Levine, what they plan ahead. We know that he has the backing of Netanyahu. Netanyahu wants this. Netanyahu, like many other autocratic leaders, want the power, especially when he's indicted.
Let me ask you a question. You're the great defender of democracy. What is wrong? Let me ask you, what would be wrong with diversifying the Supreme Court, with getting people from different backgrounds, with different sensibilities? To quote, one of your heroes, Supreme Court Justice Sonia Sotomayor in the United States, having the unique wisdom of a Latina woman. All right. What about the unique wisdom?
Listen, don't teach me about being okay. I'm Mizrahi, right? You two are Ashkenazi Jews, okay? I'm all for diversity in the Supreme Court. There's now more diversity in the Supreme Court.
You're in favor of changing.
They are conservative. They are conservative judges. One of them that the government tried to lean its nasty plan said it has to be done through the court.
Gentlemen,
the court is very diverse and it should be more diverse, but not to be crippled by the executive branch.
Gentlemen,
very good.
Gentlemen, Jeremy Saltan, I can see you want to chime in, and we're having some technical difficulties hearing you. And until we fix it, we do want to cross live now to Jerusalem. I-24 News, Hamda Salhut. It's a mass protest right outside the Israeli parliament there. Hamda, protest that is somewhat getting out of hand.
Exactly right. Israeli police are using quite the force here in Jerusalem, just like Tel Aviv. The demonstrators ended up blocking the roads here in Jerusalem. The Begin Highway, one of the largest in all of Israel. Police deploying several riot dispersal mechanisms mechanisms like the water cannon, but different from Tel Aviv, here in Jerusalem, we're actually seeing the skunk water cannons being deployed for the first time. And just moments ago, they were used behind us, and they are on standby, just waiting because police want to disperse the demonstrators that are here. However, some people have been saying that police are using excessive force with these demonstrators, especially when blocking roads, pushing and shoving. We even saw it ourselves, pushing journalists, just trying to get everybody out of the way. And some on the other side of the aisle are saying that demonstrators are not using enough force and that mechanisms like this are necessary to try and restore order. So demonstrators say they're going to continue with all of their might to try and get their message across, no matter what the costs are and the consequences that police have ready for them, like these riot dispersal methods, like the water cannon, which seems to be deploying at this time as people are using flares to try and just provoke the police, shouting shame at them, and this water cannon coming back and forth, spraying them with this skunk water. And now it's worth noting it has an odor that is so strong you are unable to get it out of your clothes, out of your hair. The smell lingers, and because it's so powerful, it is one of the stronger tools police have in their arsenal to try and disperse people from the streets. Now, the more people do use this mechanism, actually what we've been seeing is that demonstrators come back and they will try to send a message to police that despite the type of mechanisms they're using to enforce the law, they're not going to be hindered, and that their message is going to continue to be spread in the form of these protests, Ellie.
I-24 News correspondent Hamda Salahut, thank you very much for this. Hamda updating, giving us all the live updates on her Twitter feed as the day continues. And from outside the parliament into parliament corridors, I-24 News senior diplomatic correspondent Owen Alterman. If it is tumultuous outside, Owen, what is happening inside?
Yeah, well said, Ellie. It's at the end of a tumultuous day here, at least, but obviously a much calmer scene here than Hamda's dealing with, just really a few hundred yards from where I'm standing. Look, tumultuous day here at the Israeli parliament. The law, of course, passed with a 64-0 vote as the opposition boycotted. As we look forward in terms of what's next for Benjamin Netanyahu and his coalition, first of all, just in terms of the program and the calendar, the Knesset is going into summer recess in about a week. That was what drove a lot of the timing on this this bill, now law. So we'll have a few months of at least legislative calm, right, where maybe there will be some dialogue. Prime Minister Netanyahu talked about that earlier tonight, or maybe not. Obviously, there are strong feelings in the opposition. And then the Knesset will reconvene after the Jewish holidays in October. Reportedly, first on the agenda for this coalition is actually not the judicial overhaul at all, but the military draft bill, a law that's important for the ultra-Orthodox parties, another controversial piece of legislation. I'm sure we'll have plenty of time to talk about it. And then coming back to this, there are a few months of legislative calm, Ellie, at least on this issue. As for the rest of the feel of the coalition, if you will, look, we got a real preview today, didn't we? A really raw preview, right? From the pictures inside the plenum, that bitter fight between Defense Minister Yoav Gallant and Justice Minister Yariv Levin, the fissures in this coalition, between, if you will, its more moderate elements and its more right-wing or far-right elements. But there are even fissures even beyond that between the ultra-Orthodox parties within them. This is not a happy family. It's sticking together, frankly, because of the polls, which would not show this coalition, to say the least, winning a legislative majority should it come back. And Benjamin Netanyahu, as always, has to weigh, Ellie, the two political impulses. Number one, keeping on side the true believers in this overhaul from within this coalition that he needs. And on the other hand, of course, the pushback that we're seeing on the streets, in the financial markets, and of course in international relations with the reaction from the Biden White House.
And perhaps more than all else, as you put it, Owen Alterman, they really have to cling to one another because there is no alternative coalition for the members of the existing coalition. Owen Alterman, at 24 News senior diplomatic correspondent in the Israeli parliament. Thank you very much for this. Back with you, dear panelists. Thank you for staying with us. Of course, another quick fire round, 30 seconds each, and we pick it up from there. What is next for Benjamin Netanyahu's coalition? Jeremy Saltan, take the lead, please.
I think what is the attempt to try to go ahead and really deal with, on one side, as we heard from Owen, Defense Minister Yoav Gallant and those in that camp, and then Itamar Ben-Gvir on the other side. type of chess match that we know that the prime minister has been in before, and that's pretty much what he's going to have to do moving forward.
Douglas Altabef, your thoughts, sir?
I think there's going to be a lot of olive branches being handed out. I think there's going to be a lot of attempts to smooth over differences, not just within the coalition, but within the society. I think that if you listened to the demonstration last night of 250,000 people in Tel Aviv, who were very positive and wanted to hug not only the government and continue the effort, but to hug the society, I think that there will be an effort to reach out and make peace.
Uri Zaki, too little, too late?
No, listen, we all know now what Netanyahu wants to do. He wants to continue. We got the whole menu from Minister Levine half a year ago. Now we know what to expect. My somewhat slight hope that I have is that the people within Netanyahu's government who understand this is dooming the state of Israel would grow some courage and go perhaps against their own political interest, but for the future of the state of Israel, and stop these vicious plans Netanyahu stores for us.
Okay, gentlemen, we don't have much time left, but let's try again to keep on looking ahead. Should the president resign, Uri Zaki?
I don't know. He has right now. He has to resign. He definitely should not give his signature. You know, in Israel, you have to have. It's not a statutory signature. It's somewhat symbolic, but as a symbol, he should not sign the bill that was passed today. He should not give his name to be part of this horrible attempt on the Israeli democracy, and he should keep resignation as a last option. Unfortunately, it may be around the corner.
Jeremy Saltan.
I think that what most people want to see is wide agreement. And it's very disappointing for me, you know, to see Uri take the position that instead of saying this is a slippery slope, which is an argument I can understand, even if I don't agree with it, it's one I can respect, and then go ahead and say that what was just passed, that this law is something that shouldn't be signed by the president. Again, I don't think that we'll passes.
I respect the president, and I don't want him to jeopardize his legacy by signing this, because in history, this will be seen as the first step to Israel's demise. And I respect President Herzog. He's a personal friend of mine, and that's why I'm saying this.
If you go to the slippery slope, at least I can understand that argument. But the stuff they were saying before about this being a terrorist government and about this going down is, you know, the worst law in Israeli history and all of those things, those are just arguments that I'm sorry. It's not just that I don't accept them. I don't think the majority of Israelis accept them. Again,
look at the
there
polls.
are reforms done.
Look at the polls.
Need to see
hear the pilots. Hear the economists. Hear the doctors. Hear the people.
A deal.
You know, what the media has not shown is the list of doctors and soldiers and pilots who have come out and said that any attempt to bifurcate the IDF is absolutely unacceptable.
Look at the public opinion polls since this overhaul was presented. The government lost its majority. And as I said, there's a solution for that. With keeping the government intact. Why not a referendum? Why are you afraid of the people?
Why should there be a
referendum by the people? Put the whole Levine plan to a referendum. Why are you scared? Why are you scared of democracy? Why are you scared of the people?
We had a democratic election.
But you had a democratic election not to change the Israeli constitution.
From your point of view.
You did not have that.
From your point
you
of view,
never mentioned this. Netanyahu didn't mention this. It's true, and Tirzu mentioned this. But Netanyahu never mentioned this.
Are counterproductive at this point. They are telling regular Israelis that a lot of these people don't care about them. They care about making their point. They care about winning, but they don't care about the country.
Take it to a referendum. Hear the people.
We're not going to burn down the country.
I will respect any result of a referendum. On this.
You have visions of terror, but we're not going to
be scared of the people. Let's put it to a referendum.
We are absolutely, no, I would say that is the exact projection. You are deathly afraid of the people because the people
I'm not
don't
afraid of the
support
people.
you.
I am part of the people. You are a group, an elite group that's trying to influence
elite, yeah.
Israel with
Very
foreign
good.
ideas
Yeah.
from the far right, the alt-right, the American right, imported here into
you go.
Israel. But you are
Right.
now facing the people for the first time. The people is awakened.
Right.
The people
Of
has
course.
awakened,
I'm
it
so
will,
glad you
and
set
it will
things straight
stop.
for me.
This attempt on the
this is
Israeli democracy, it will be
remarkable.
hard.
Great,
It will be
remarkable.
hard, but
We
the
are-
people will triumph
we are the
against this
voice of
terrorist
Middle Israel.
government
The
that is
regular
attempting
people
on
in this
Israeli
country.
democracy.
Okay.
We shall prevail.
All
You
right.
see that.
Okay.
Gentlemen, we are nearing the end of our conversation.
He's
Jeremy,
reached the end of his road.
excuse me?
Never mind.
At this point in time, can Israel be glued back together? Jeremy.
I believe that Israel can come together. I believe that there are people that have cool heads who are sitting in both the opposition and the coalition. And I really hope that what we see is some courage here. What I really hope we see is some politicians that put the country first above their own political interest of what they think their base wants and do what's right for the country. Because we're one country, we're one nation. And again, I really, really do believe this. A majority of the people have not been on either side. They want to see a deal between both. And I hope that we get there.
Yeah, well, with some Israelis offering a two-state solution for Israel itself, I sure do hope so, that you're right, Jeremy, and that this renewed glue will be found. Uri Zaki, Douglas Altabef, and Jeremy Saltan, thank you very much, gentlemen, for this, decisive day for Israel. No doubt about that. Hey, I see you liked it. Want more? Just hit the subscribe button right here. Go on. I know you want to.